All right, we are live. Excellent. And we are here talking about Cthulhu in Cairo, one of our favorite podcasts that we love to listen to. And we are graced with the presence of Raz, the creator of Cthulhu in Cairo. We're so lucky that he just happened to be able to cut
Never
some
ends.
time out of his busy schedule for us. We're very grateful. We're very grateful. There you go. Very grateful that he could make it. No, actually, is glad because we can bounce some questions off of him. But we're going to be discussing episode 1 today. Our thoughts of just that particular episode itself. Um, One question wanted to start off with, right, to get the ball rolling, and we'll just kind of go counterclockwise. Uh, Raz, what spawned this idea? What created this? I got to do this thing.
It was really for my one friend who's been role playing with me since we were like 12. He has a real passion for World War II history, and
Okay.
it was just something that when I started looking at how I could put a Cthulhu game together, I knew the right people I wanted to get in. They kind of had been in other groups I'd run, and I thought the 5 would be really good together. And then they all had an interest, and when I started looking at the years to take all these historical events, it just sort of kind of came together that 1931 was the right time. Like everything around the world was still in that flux of coming out of the Victorian, cadaver photography, and there was still so much spiritualism, and Rasputin had only been 15 years earlier, and all this stuff was out there still. Yet the world was industrializing and modernizing so fast that you had this real flux. And you could still delve into the peasants of Russia and find Baba Yaga out there talking to people, but and Baba Vanga and all these others. But you also had the people like Stalin trying to stomp on the world and Hitler doing that. So it was just a great era to work with, and that's sort of how it came about. And it just kept getting, the narrative in my head kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So
Okay. All right. I like how that formed up, how it came to be. Yeah, that is a fantastic time in history. I mean, it makes no small sense that that's where Indiana Jones is kind of set in that timeline too. Like in the very late 20s, early 30s.
right.
Just when all that stuff is happening and just overshadowed by what's going on.
Absolutely.
Yep, definitely. Melinda, do you have an initial question to start off with?
You caught me totally off guard. No.
Caught you flat-footed. I'm gonna get to Amanda and come back to you. No problem.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna catch her flat-footed too.
We can bounce back and forth if we're not careful.
What's the question? I'm sorry.
Just an initial question that you had, like something that was forming in your head when you were listening to the podcast. If you had to ask Raz a question about the podcast, what would it be?
I honestly, with it being the first episode, I don't really feel like I have enough background. Like I'm still just in it. I was slightly disappointed at where it, ended because I was like, what?
It was a cliffhanger end, right? Right, completely cliffhanger. Yeah. I remember you texting me. It's like, because I had my mind on something completely different, and you were asking me something. And he's like, oh no, it's like said they were going to be on break for 5 minutes and come back. I'm like, oh yeah, now I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So it that's really like, it was really difficult for me to not listen ahead because I tend to binge podcasts. So
there are no rules. That's fine. I did too. So yeah.
I'm afraid of spoiling something though. So I guess really, like, is there a reason that you chose to end that episode at that point? Was it just a natural ending, or was it just like just to leave it on a cliffhanger?
I have a theory.
Go ahead. Let's hear the theory.
Evil SOB.
Yeah. Mike, I try to time whatever we're doing to about an hour and 5 minutes. The early episodes were really hard because we were in our infancy of understanding the technology, and it was COVID. So we weren't at a table. So I had to make sure that we were running on Discord and trying to use different bots and things to record everyone from all over the state of New Jersey. As a matter of fact, one person's outside of it. So long story short, we were always looking to try to come up to a point. And you'll hear as you listen to the show later on, certain things start to stretch a little bit, and maybe we'll throw something in, or a joke will happen that you're not thinking is going to stay in there, and all of a sudden it's, oh, the action's moving again, and bam, and we stop. And I really do that because we have very vocal players that scream into the mic a lot when I do things like that, and it just irks them to no end. And it's now sort of become a trademark. So, like, I'd say out of the 68 episodes or 67 episodes that are out there right now, I'd say 55 of them end in a terrible spot. So we really work hard to do that. Okay. SOB.
Evil.
Yeah. Because it's a show, it's a pulp, it's a radio show, right? It's like the old time radio. We want to get people to go tune in next week to Little, the Shadow or Little Abner or whatever. Yeah. Little Orphan Annie.
I'm sorry.
Do you have a dramatis personae anywhere for this show? Is there a website with like the characters and plays them, or?
Yeah, that's so we've that's coming out in about a week. Seriously. We hoped to have had it ready by November 1st. The web designer and the producer of Cthulhu in Cairo lost her computer, and we lost about 8 episodes worth of, not lost the material that was stored on we have a separate server, but all the editing that she had been far ahead on was gone. Because I edit the other 2 shows. I had to edit Hellfire Nights and 7th Sea. So I have somebody, Mel does the other stuff. So it held us from getting the release. Now the Patreon just went back. We put that up with all new levels and tiers. So the website's hopefully going to be out by the end of this week. So you'll have that real soon. I'm sorry it's not there today. But
I have lots of questions actually, and I'm just tired enough. You don't have to sit on them not to ask them all. But
no worries.
How long did it take you from the initial, hey, maybe we could do this, to actually taking a breath and taking on putting it out? I'm kind of curious. Do you have a lot of shows already in the can?
So we were recording weekly for the first year, and we were at one point, probably when we started releasing shows onto Anchor so that they could go out to the major distributors, we probably had 10 hours, 12 hours recorded, but we were doing 2 episodes a week, 2.5 hour segments with things that we had to chop out of each episode. So we were getting 2 for 1. So every week we would record 2, but we only released 1. So we were getting far ahead. Then of course you have holidays and people having RL issues where they can't make it one night. So that's sort of chopped down. Right now we're on about 6 weeks ahead of where you are. Our goal is to always stay at least a month ahead, so that if we do have someone go down sick, or I get work, whatever, or the holidays, we don't have to break production. So that we're always trying to be a little bit further plot line ahead of where the listener is. So
cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No worries.
Right.
Production issues.
Yeah, and if you're going to do anything, if you're ever going to run anything of your own, give yourself that leeway, because if you're trying to go live or record this week to release it next week or the end of this week, you're going to just you're not going to keep people on a continuous schedule, because things are going to pop up. A storm rips through, and all of a sudden everyone's remote. You can't hear each other, and you have to cancel that night. I mean, stuff happens all the time. So
well, yeah, I remember like when we did the Conan one, like we lost like all of my audio, I think.
One night we lost all
one
your
episode.
Audio. Yep.
All my audio in one episode. So we basically just kind of had to narrate it and do a narrative of it. I think we did.
And I had to chop conversations apart. Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah. It can be a pain, but
yeah, it happens. It's a real thing. So in this episode, it's basically, it's honestly most of it is exposition. We set up our characters. We start up how how these people, who these people are and why they're there. We have your cast of wonderful actors. I remembered to write down the names, so I wouldn't remember them. So wouldn't have to remember. So we had Joel, who was playing Sid.
Sidney Poulter. Yep.
Yeah, he was Mr. Fix-It.
Yep.
Then Melinda, who was playing Faye, it was odd because they didn't really state like I'm an archaeologist, I'm a blah blah, like a Call of Cthulhu occupation. You had to kind of figure it out throughout the episode. They kind of gave their background. Faye, who struck me as an explorer, archaeologist sort of deal.
Right.
Lauren, who was playing Catherine, who she said that she was a nurse,
Mhm.
had a nursing background in the Great War, and but definitely had a lot of influence at this exhibition due to her uncle,
Right.
Uncle Al.
Aloysius
Then
Banks. Yeah.
yes, yeah. Then Kayla, who was playing Abilene, who was a teacher. Is that right?
Aveline is a substitute teacher. Yep.
Yeah, substitute teacher. And then we had Scott, who was playing Professor John, who was a professor of history.
Mhm.
Right? Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, they kind of explained what they did during the setup, which was great. I like that. They gave like their background and not really said what their goal was,
Mhm.
or anything like that. We would just kind of hit the ground running and just and went into the exhibition and just started saying what they were going to do, which is really cool. I liked how that was set up.
Thank you.
Now, are these people like professional voice actors? Or are they experienced in acting? Because they give great voice. I don't know what else to say. They
They look
really get
great.
Yes.
the
they
voice
Thank you.
projects really well. The
So,
players, I mean,
yeah,
just,
not me, of course. Yeah, I understand.
were.
No, I knew where you're going. Yeah. So Lauren and Kayla both had time in Show Kids Invitational Theater, which did basically Broadway type productions for children. They did all kinds of stuff like Beauty and the Beast, and they actually would bring in sets when the Broadway shows were either on a national tour and were down for the months. They would bring those pieces in and actually use those props and the costumes. I mean, it was really and semi-professional theater. So they're from there. Joel's been role playing since he was 12, and Joel just loves British, TV and does voices. And Scott's background, a lot of role playing experience, but never anything on mic. So that's sort of they kind of gelled together really well. Now we have a couple of professionals in other shows, but in this cast, they were all pretty much amateurs starting out. So
That's awesome.
But they got in character. They really embraced playing in character. And it showed. I think they were truly enjoying their characters, was the impression I got. And then there's you and your voices, which is just, pretty incredible.
oh, thank you. Aloysius Banks is fun. He doesn't come up often, but when he shows up well. He's always messing up Catherine. Yeah.
The girl that was it Sydney picked up in the cab.
Oh, she's so awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, she's a piece of work.
Did you have a general idea of the characters that you wanted to create, or did they have complete control over their character creation?
They had complete control.
That's awesome.
They told me what they wanted to do. The reason they're all there obviously came from the narrative itself and the story of the the museum piece being unfurled, and because again in 1930s it still had a lot of that Egyptian feel. Tutankhamun was only 7 years before that, 8 years before it. Everything was finally brought back to London. So I mean, I was trying to capture that moment, and they have no idea what's about to go beyond that, obviously, and how bad it gets. But I didn't want to just start out with you're all investigators, you're all part of a PI group, you're all police officers. I didn't want to do that. I wanted it to be more organic, like you're just all at a party and it starts to go to shit, not too long into it. So yeah, that's sort of they came together that way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I had a quick question also. I'm not super familiar with the Cthulhu system.
Okay.
So I didn't know if, especially if I'm recommending this podcast to a friend, because it is very enjoyable so far.
Well, thank you.
Is a lack of knowledge in the system going to be an issue listening forward?
No, not the way I run.
Awesome.
I tend to be very loose with rules. I'm not an RAW guy. I'm more of if it works in the story. Occasionally something. I mean, rules obviously dice are there to build drama. Right. And to give you that chance to survive the unsurvivable. Like that's what the dice are for. And we use them, and they do come back to bite me in the ass a lot because my players seem to roll incredibly well when I don't need them to. I mean, incredibly well at times. Like I'm starting to wonder if they're cheating. Like, oh, what the hell? But no, they've had some times when there's been just fantastic rolls, and like any other GM, you react to that. But no, if you're not a true Cthulhu, I have people that have never role played in their life that listen to the show and have written in. Just kind of got hooked onto it from someone else that they were like, this is just funny. Listen to some of this. Because I was saying to Matt, I build horror off of humor. I believe that things have to be light, and you have to kind of be calm and kind of just loose for that punch to hit you out of nowhere. Because if you're just, I don't like slasher films. If you're just constantly stabbing, you just get desensitized.
Yeah.
The best shocks are when you have no idea they're coming. Like, and that's what I try to build. So a lot of times I'll try to disarm them by throwing in funny things like Aloysius Banks. He was totally to get them off. They're okay. We're investigators. Okay, something bad's gonna happen. Okay, yeah, it'll happen when I get to it. That kind of thing. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Oh no, thank you. It's good
That-
question.
That definitely helped build to the end of the first episode too, because I realize you haven't pulled any cosmic or mythos horror. But what happens in that bookstore is pretty terrifying when you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and we'll move on.
Well, I mean, you did do a cool name drop in the bookstore when you talked about John Dee.
Right.
You had a copy of John Dee in there.
Yep.
I don't think they said which copy it was yet in episode 1, but yeah, that's definitely an awesome name drop. Anybody that plays Call of Cthulhu or runs Call of Cthulhu a lot knows who John Dee is and how he figures in the mythos. So yeah, when you said that, I was like, oh, this is about to get really interesting. And then even more so, like when the robbers come out, just break out of the woodwork. And it was a really cool scene in that the players couldn't break out into superhero mode, because they're in their formal attire.
Yeah.
And nobody's armed to the teeth and ready to knock out a bullwhip or something like that.
Yeah.
Everybody's in their tuxedos and formal gowns, and then here comes these guys with guns in England where nobody has guns. Nobody's supposed to have guns anyway. But yeah, that made a super tense scene, because then all of a sudden the guys you really got to operate off your wits, and the players were playing smart. I remember the first person who had initiative who was like, I'm just going to try to meld in with the group and wait for an opening, which was great, rather than trying to make something happen and get shot. which I think they're pulp characters. They could probably take a shot or two, but it's still not cool. It's still, it'll still wreck your day. Like, somebody could get off a critical hit and really put a dent in your day.
Oh, they can. Yeah, you can get wrecked. One bullet normally won't, but if it's the right shot, it could. It can definitely mess you up. Put you in shock. Yeah.
I like how they were playing like characters in a story as opposed to characters in an RPG where they feel like they have to be the hero, and when you get a chance, you have initiative in something, you have to do something.
Right.
And even Pulp Cthulhu has an investigative element, and I like the fact that they stepped back and said, I'm just gonna kind of listen for a moment, because that seems more realistic, as opposed to I'm gonna rush in with my big sword and bash everything.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely tell these are accomplished Call of Cthulhu players. They're like, oh no, I can die.
Oh, this is bad. Oh, wow.
I want to make sure I say, running in and bashing and everything works in some RPGs, but not in this kind of story or this RPG. So it was nice.
Yeah.
Nice break. Yeah.
So in episode 1, do they yell out? I'm trying to recall, because we're so many ahead. Do they call out what book they're looking for, or is that the beginning of episode 2?
They're looking for a book?
No. The one guy, I think the owner of the store name drops that he has a John Dee.
Okay.
The Professor John, the historian, the professor of history. He name drops that he has a John Dee. He doesn't say which one yet, because then all hell breaks loose. Sid is like talking Cockney to some other girl, and I think he's getting ready to make something happen, little something later on.
Love action.
But that's always fun in Call of Cthulhu too. I mean, you gotta play it up. These are a bunch of boring ass stuffy English people. When they can get their freak on, let them get their freak on. I don't know what else. I don't know what else to say.
Well, if you
Yeah.
watch British TV, you'll know.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
The whole upstairs downstairs moment coming on. But
Catherine, the player who plays Catherine, it was just absolutely beside herself because we keep Roll20 open for video so we can see each other.
Mhm.
And when I said, you can't be out past 9:30 because basically you'd be a whore.
Trollop. Yeah.
You'd be a trollop. What a cat lady. Her face was and then when I said to the other young lady that plays, can we get a man over here so I can get somebody who knows what they're talking about? And we want to get a picture of can you just pose by the thing? But we want to talk to a male archeologist so he knows what he's talking
that was
about.
a great scene. That was a great scene.
At the end of it, they're like, what? I'm like, guys, this is 1930s. I mean, there's going to be a little bit of that sexism. I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
But they take it in stride and they know how to get around it. So that was fun. It was good.
And I thought you played that very well as someone who has encountered sexism
Yeah.
in their academic pursuits. It wasn't intended. You played it very, very well, and I loved watching you fight stand fight back. That was one of my favorite things about the episode.
Hey, go to hell. It's like, there you go. Sometimes you got to rile them.
Stickle them, get their feathers ruffled, and then we'll see what happens. So, that's always cool. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I try to do the same thing in my Call of Cthulhu games. I have it veiled. I tell them it's like, this is the 20s. It's there. I'm going to veil it. If you want to dive in, we'll dive in. But we're going to hit the surface of it. Yeah, we're going to hit. Now I can't control other players. Well, I can to a point, Melinda, but I can't help some players have crushes on other players and can't control themselves.
Oh,
you guys playing were awful, but it was funny. It was good natured.
Yeah. But try not to dig too much in it. But I mean, it's always fun when especially like when you can triumph over it.
Yeah, exactly.
When the player can squirt the mud in the eye or whatever of whatever is causing that conflict at the time. That's great.
Yeah, and listen, we don't want to cover everything that bad was in the 1930s. I mean, that would just go bring us into dark places. But you also don't want to make it so it doesn't sound somewhat authentic because it's a historical campaign. I mean, I have to have some of that. Otherwise, why am I using all the other historical stuff?
Right.
So there's good and bad with all of it. So we try to walk a line, like you said, Matt, walk a line without making it just not fun.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point it just becomes.
You can dip and rise. But try to stay on that line. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know about Amanda. I thought you did a really good job handling that because it adds color and flavor to the time period that you're playing in. But it wasn't beating somebody over the head with a club.
True that.
I think Banks was more annoying than the reporter in the end. Anyway, I think he's just.
I did like how she turned it on him and kind of pointed out his potential discretions.
Well, she did that very quickly.
Yeah, she did.
That wasn't what I wanted, but that's okay. I love it. Sometimes we go, well, I went down that rabbit hole. Now it's my fault. I'll have to listen to what they have to say about me.
Yeah. That's the thing too. Yeah. Well, just like Melinda was saying in her game, we tend to go down the rabbit hole, and you're like, well, now we're in a comfortable spot. How are we going to get out of this? Okay, we're just going to slide right by it. That's really all we can do.
That's all you can do.
We stuck our foot in it. Let's just move on.
Yeah.
That's all you can do at that point.
It doesn't. I don't think it shows up in listening to the episode, but do they do anything that really surprised you or caught you off guard? Did they go left when you were expecting them to go, uphill or something?
So you're listening to the first half of what we record per night. So I'm
making you think back.
Yeah, exactly. So they did, and it comes up pretty quickly in episode 2. And they don't just pause. When they go into action, they do some things that I wasn't even thinking about. Not that doesn't happen to us all the time, but when they find out why they're there, and it kind of the shock of why they're there, it kind of makes them go, "What did he say?" And because it's such an odd thing that they're looking for. I mean, these are thugs, and they scream out this book, and everyone's like, "What the hell do they want that for?" And when it
Yeah.
Oh, Matt, you remember? So it's like
Yeah.
they want a what? And everyone's just kind of it stuns the players for like a good 30 seconds. But after
Exactly.
that, they come
Yeah.
flying out of and they're like everyone's trying to do their thing, and so
like
it's
like
funny.
the first 15 seconds in is like, I want this book of poetry, and like Lauren's just cracking up. She just loses it.
Yeah,
a couple of them, and
the thugs are looking for a book of poetry. Yeah,
and you can see like the crowd like totally doing that, like at the group. They're like, what?
We're gonna get shot over this.
I mean, we're like
Spoiler alert.
we're rich people. We've got money. They're not here to hold us up. They're after a book.
Yeah.
I don't even think these people can read, but but okay.
Well, my grandma read a book to me once.
I remember hearing that too. That was awesome. Yeah, I read the book to me once. That was nice. Not saying I could read it, but my nan read it to me. Nice. That was really nice. But yeah, the whole episode did a really good job of exposition. You do an awesome job of setting the scene.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I mean that's like the number one job of the GM is to set scene, and I find myself forgetting to do that a lot at times. Like I will describe the characters and what's happening, but I'm like, oh shoot, did I tell them it was daylight or night, or I can't even remember. So half the group is like, is it what time is it? I'm like, oh god, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's like dark 30.
0:30,
yeah. But yeah, you do an awesome job of setting the scene and for that whole exposition of everybody kind of introducing themselves and what they do, and then you creating the world around them with like the exposition, like explaining the raft and how it's moving by steam power and stuff like that, or how the oars and stuff are moving through the clockwork dolls with the clockwork figures, the mannequins by steam power. Really, really set the scene, and then describing the bookstores, not a rinky-dink bookstore, but like a big, like B. Dalton's bookstore stuck in the middle of London. Yeah,
which was a real place. That's actually you can find them on. I think they're on even Wikipedia as one of the biggest ones in London at the time or something. They were a very famous bookstore. Yeah.
There's also a publisher called Wiley and Sons. I have some of their history books.
Nice.
Yeah, that I didn't know that part. That's great. That means they must have been much more involved than I even just a normal book front. Yeah, very cool.
Cool.
So I found the bookstore really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good. It was an interesting place to do what we did, and like I said, when the second episode kicks in with what they're looking for, and then they start to put two and two together, that it, like Matt said, it's not a heist or a holdup. It was then we don't have to worry about we're doing this differently then, and everyone kind of jumped into action.
Yeah.
It was cool.
Yeah, but yeah. So it's good. Everybody played their role really well. I thought they were very nice and gracious at the party, and then had a really good job with the small talk kind of a bit at the after party kind of a deal.
Oh, you mean when Catherine says I'm a wallflower and your compliment is bullshit?
Yeah,
it's like what the
Catherine.
hell?
Yeah. Her greetings are awkward.
Yeah, she was delightfully awkward. It kind of reminded me of how I am when I go to social places.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
Oh yeah, that's totally I connected with her on that.
Especially,
yeah. Go ahead, Matt. I'm sorry.
I was especially us now, like in the middle of COVID still. Like I'm still going to cons. I'm like, no, elbow. What are we doing? I don't know. I'm lost. And then I'm just like, you know what? Forget. Hey, how's it going?
That whole sequence of I like your dress. You're very, I think you're very nice. Was so off the cuff. There was your moment that took everybody. I think in the first episode, she looks at her and says, "What do you want from me? Like, what is this? An underhand compliment? I don't have time for friends." And And Aveline goes, like, okay, and walks away. And I'm thinking, well, that's a great way to put a group together. To my one player, I'm thinking, well, that was now I got to get them back together again. So yeah, that delayed the friendship a little while, but it finally comes together.
Yeah, it's just it did really good job of setting that scene because it's like they're both just sitting there and they're like two queens in the room. They're like, oh, she's nice.
Yeah.
That kind of a thing. Oh, she's nice. It was totally that moment. It was great. Especially Catherine. Like, what did I just do? I don't even know what I did. I know it was bad.
That's why I'm not
Like,
allowed
why-
out past 9.
Yeah.
Given that your crew are not professional voice actors, I want you and them to know that I actually prefer listening to your podcast than a lot of other listen or live play things out there.
Well, thank you.
I enjoyed it that
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
And I can't
I-
wait to listen to the second session.
I started it on my way home from work, and I have about a half an hour or so commute on my way home from work. And I sat and listened to it. I sat in my car when I got home. My kids were coming out. I'm like, "You coming in?" I was like, "I'm not finished with this yet."
Oh, wow.
I
Thank you.
couldn't like shut it off. It was really great,
Oh,
and
thanks.
until the end. And then I was like, "What the hell, man?"
Yeah, she literally texted me. She's like, "What happened? Are we supposed to go to the second episode? I don't know. I'm confused." I'm like, I have to. I just
I'm not going to listen ahead.
exactly. But no, it's super great. First episode really good on the intro, the characters and what's about to happen, and yeah, a perfect cliffhanger moment to what's going to happen. But yeah, that whole we're going to take a break, be back 5 minutes, and gloop. That was just kind of like a.
I was afraid that I had, because you sent.
I know. 'Cause I'm like looking. I'm like, did
Yeah.
I lose connection? What happened? I don't know. Somebody calling me? I don't. You know?
Yeah,
You
that
sent the
was.
link, but then I brought it up in my own Spotify, so I was afraid maybe I didn't have the right
Oh.
thing, and I was like, well, no, because if I click on his link, it's about the same, duration. He
Yeah.
just cut it off right there.
Yeah.
And again,
Yeah.
that was our early days. We weren't as technically savvy, so we did it and we knew what we were doing, but we were like, and when you start this, you honestly don't realize, like, I'm not going to say we have hundreds of thousands of listeners, because we don't. We have 15,000 downloads already in a year, and it's growing. And we've been touched by people in 31 countries now. 32. This happened about 3 days ago. But that's, I mean, again, it's few here, but it's growing. But when you do it the first time, you're not thinking that you're going to have those kind of numbers. You're kind of doing it just to bring everybody together and see how it would, like, especially the first couple episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So when we did that, we were laughing, going, yeah, it's probably funny leaving that in. It's going to make people really go crazy, and then they're going to be pissed off. Now people are like, and you're not the first, believe me, I've gotten emails like, that first episode sent me for a loop. Did you just, like, were you an idiot? I'm not an idiot. We kind of, but sort of. I mean, did it work? Did you go to the next one right away? Well, yeah. I was like, okay, good. Then it worked. But no,
I knew exactly what you were doing. I was like, oh.
Yeah, we'll be back a couple minutes. But the rest of them do have regular cliffhangers where it's story related, not just us clicking out. So it'll be better.
Nice. Going to pre-break and they never return. They were never heard from again.
It's
Tidy Bowl man, got them all.
Ben-Hur. It's like Ben-Hur or the Ten Commandments goes to intermission and it just keeps rolling, and you're like, "What are we doing here? Where's the rest of the movie?"
Well, I guess we're done then. Yeah, I guess we're good. On that note, let's wrap this up.
Okay.
I am going to put the link to the podcast down here, the Spotify one at least. If you have not listened to it yet, definitely give it a listen to it. It is a lot of fun, and you can keep up with us as we keep going on through the reviews. Raz, we do enjoy you,
Thank you
making the time to come and join us again, as we were talking about earlier. It's always special. It's always I feel a whipping. I feel a whipping coming. I feel it coming. It's a whipping. But Melinda, Amanda, any parting thoughts as we wrap up here?
I did have one question
Go ahead.
left. I'm sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
You said that, and I might be remembering this incorrectly. You said that this particular campaign you intend to be heavily combat driven. Am I remembering that correctly?
There are scenes that and certain chapters that go real ugly.
Okay.
But like England has moments. Then Berlin gets a little bit more violent. Vienna is a crunch. It's just horror. Pure, just gruesome horror. And then they get into Nepal, and Nepal is just combat, just over the top. So things happen along the way, and it was, and that my players, make a short answer of it, my players sort of dictate that, because if they're clever enough not to shoot into something or they run, I'm okay with that. I don't want to. I'm not trying to force dice rolling, but the combat does come in.
Okay.
But we normally edit a lot of it down. Like we don't want to just sit here having you listen to dice. So we'll chunk a lot of it down, or we'll do explanations of what happened, because the listener gets tired of just hearing, "Oh, I rolled a 72. It's a miss." Do you want to push it? Yeah, that's
no fun. That's no fun.
Not long term.
Yeah, I mean, it can't all be ball gowns and business cards, but on that note, we're gonna wrap it up.
Ball gowns and business cards.
but yeah, we thank you for listening, and we do again encourage you to listen to the podcast and keep up with us as we continue the review of Cthulhu in Cairo. Thank you all very much, and have a great evening.